The following is the single most effective interview tactic I have. I'm so excited to share it. I have never ever seen this fail. I learned about it one day when I was defeated for a position by someone with far inferior qualifications who'd used this tactic to wow the hiring manager, wow the panel, and essentially win the job over me. I've used this in every successful interview I've had since then. And every time that someone has done this during an interview in which I was making a hiring decision, I've hired this person. My name is Greg Langstaff. I'm a certified resume strategist and interview coach, and I swear I'm not normally this cryptic, but I'm describing something that's really hard to explain without examples, so I'm just going to dive in and tell you exactly how this works. So to paint a picture for you, I had an absolute blast when I was in university, and I was president of my student council for 2 years, and following that, I decided to stick around for one more year to get my grades up for grad school. And I didn't want to leave the student council environment because it was just a lot of fun. So I applied for the orientation chair position. And I figured I had it sort of as a shoe-in because I had essentially run orientation the previous 2 years. And going into the interview for the position, I did everything that you normally would to prepare for an interview. I predicted what questions were going to come up. I practiced answering them. I prepared some questions for the panel. I ironed my dress shirt and dusted off the dress shoes, everything I could think of to prepare. And I went to the interview and it actually went really well in my opinion. We had a good rapport going. I knew all the people on the panel and yeah, I thought it was going to go extremely well. And then I got a call a couple days later and I did not get the position. And I found out that a friend of mine who was a lot younger than me ended up getting the role. And I was lucky enough to find out why, because that changed my entire life. So I walked into that interview knowing that I could do the role and preparing to just tell them how well I could do the role. And I did tell them. Through each question they asked, I had a great answer. What my friend and competitor did was that he showed up to that interview with the entire orientation already planned and printed out in a nice little binder. He had event schedules, he had a budget, he had the volunteer uniforms created, he had risk and liability assessments done, he had mocked up partnerships with different vendors. He had gone so far above and beyond what preparing for this interview was supposed to be. And whereas I had told them I could do the job, he showed them and he won and he deserved it. And now that's how I translate interviews into job offers, by going above and beyond, creating undeniable demonstrations that I or my clients are able to do this job extremely well. And I know it's a bold move, but it works way more often than playing it safe. So let's talk about that today. How can we identify what we would bring to an interview to showcase undeniably that we would be able to do this job extremely well? How do we wow the hiring managers? How do we make the other candidates look ill-prepared even though they've prepared absolutely appropriately? I'm going to talk you through a bunch of examples I've seen, and then we'll talk about how to make your own. Let's jump in and do this right now. So another example, this one a personal one. I got my first full-time job after grad school in that same university that I did my undergrad and running the online orientation program. And as you may recall, if you've heard any of my story before, you'll know that this was the first job I applied to when I decided to move home to Canada. And I had spent about 8 months going through this really painstaking job search process in the States, trying to get a work visa. It did not work out. So when I had the chance to go home, go back to my school that had raised me and get this great job with this great salary, I wasn't going to take any chances. So looking at the program that I was interviewing to run, I did a full assessment of all the opportunities, the strengths, and how we could build out the program. And I put together about a 10-page assessment and plan on how I would run that program, how I would improve things, who I would partner with, opportunities for innovation, new technology to use. I did as much as I could possibly think of, and I emailed it to them the night before the interview, and they were floored. So needless to say, I got that job offer, and I've been advising people to use that same strategy ever since. So here's a couple more quick examples I've seen. So I once hired someone who had far less experience than any of the other candidates, but we asked these people to put together a presentation on a program that they would run for us. And whereas most candidates came in with a nice, well thought out program, this particular person had done a full first-hand research study on a whole panel of our target audience. She had sourced out the people, connected with them, run a needs assessment survey, and then put together a program based on that feedback. It was absolutely impressive. It was above and beyond what we were expecting. And surprise, surprise, when I hired this person, she continued to go above and beyond time after time in the role, so no regrets there. When I was a recruiter, we were hiring for a leadership development coordinator position, and one of the candidates showed up having created a full threefold brochure full of all the programs that he was going to put together and how he would run the marketing and communications to get people to sign up for those programs. This is not something we asked for. We loved it, and he was offered a position. One of my recent clients is a digital marketing professional, and she performed a full SWOT analysis on the digital marketing channels for the company that she was applying to. And this one's very interesting because she submitted this document to the hiring manager. The hiring manager specifically said, due to union regulations, I can't even look at this, and yet she was still hired. So even though it can't always count as part of your application, if you do something impressive like that, once they see it, it can't be unseen. They know you're driven, they know you're determined, they know you go above and beyond and you care about the role. This is a very, very effective tactic, even if they say it's not a part of the process. So one client I worked with, who is an absolute legend, went all out on this one interview. And it actually just happened yesterday, so as of recording this, I don't know if he got the position, but I'm feeling very confident. So hopefully it works out for him. We'll find out soon enough, but let me tell you what he did. So the position he was interviewing for was a brand manager of a popular retail clothing line. And what he did for this position, they asked him to come up with a campaign for the brand, and he had 20 minutes to present. And what he did was he put together not only an outline of the campaign, as you would expect, but he also created influencer packages, which he sent via mail to the interview panelists that included all the merchandise that he wanted to give to these potential influencers. So he had these boxes mocked up and sent out. He also had designs created of some of the specific merchandise for the campaigns by a graphic designer. He had 3D renderings made up of how the stores would look to implement these campaigns. He had a 50-second commercial made that captured his brand voice and vision that he had for the campaign. He had digital ads made up. He had bus shelter ads made up. All these things that he could show to bring his campaign to life, along with all the other stuff that they had asked him for. This is a very extreme version of going all out for a job. And I'm actually hoping to bring this client of mine in for a live video so we can do a breakdown on the whole session. But you don't need to go that far, but you certainly need to do a little something extra if you want to stand out in your interview process. So hopefully at this point, I've got you on board to at least try this out. And I'll run you through a couple examples of things we could do for other types of positions. So if you're in marketing, you could create a sample marketing campaign for this particular company without being asked. If the role involves any sort of planning or strategy, do a deep dive on a plan or strategy that you would create if you were hired for the position, again, without even being asked. And if they do ask you for something, we need to do something similar to what my client did, maybe not that extreme, but we do want to go above and beyond what they're asking for so we can stand out above the other candidates. If you are applying for something in teaching, you could create a very unique and interesting lesson plan that you deliver. For project management, you could deliver a project plan for the type of project you might be managing for this team. If you're in any sort of artistic, creative, or design type position, in addition to your portfolio that you're going to show them, bring some custom content you made just for them, just to make them feel special and show them what it would look like if you were working for them. Now, I know these examples don't cover all the industries. I don't have time, of course, to go over every single industry, but I'm going to give you a little framework to help you decide what you can bring to the interview to stand out. So option one, or best case scenario, as we've been talking about, is an unsolicited example of your ability to do this job for this company. So event planners, you could bring a plan for a sample event. If you are a business analyst, you could do an analysis of that company to the best of your knowledge. If you are in customer service, healthcare, first responder, you could bring in a presentation that showcases your approach to delivering exceptional service to the customers, clients, and patients that you're working with. Now, option two, if you can't bring in something made just for this position, we can always bring in samples of our previous work as well. This could include things like a design portfolio or perhaps your sales records. If you're an analyst, you can show them a big project that you've already completed. We're kind of putting together a highlight tape for these people. Now, I know that doesn't always work for some industries, so our third option, and this is not quite as good as the first two, but it's still certainly great. And also remember, you're not at a disadvantage if you can't do this because of your industry, because you're obviously interviewing against only people who are also in your industry applying for the same type of role. Bring in a nice stack of referrals and reference letters from people that you've worked with who can at least tell them that you do a phenomenal job. This could come from people like your manager, coworkers, clients, patients, anything we can do to just showcase that you do a great job when you're in a role similar to this one. As for when to give them or show them what you've created, if it's something that can be shared digitally, I always like to send it before the interview because then they are going to come in predisposed to be impressed by everything that you say. When we are in an interview, judgments are happening very, very quickly. And if people decide they like you, they're going to look at everything you say through rose-colored glasses. If they do not like you, it's very easy to find something wrong with everything you say. So if you can send this to them beforehand, they're going to be prejudiced in your favor. And they may even look at other candidates who they're interviewing and say, well, why didn't you create something like this person? Now, if you don't have a chance to send anything in advance, you can always give it to them at the beginning of the interview. If there isn't an opening to do so there, you can always bust out whatever your impressive thing is at the end of your interview when they ask if you have any questions for them. Now, one final piece of advice on this topic. I know it's a bold move. It might be scary, but I'm telling you that every single time I've seen this happen, it has worked. That doesn't mean, of course, that it is going to work every time, but we know that playing it safe and staying with the status quo absolutely does not work every time. So what I'm encouraging you to do is, if you want to take this swing, if you're comfortable with it, it is incredibly effective. Now, one last thing to keep in mind, if you do something like this, it has to be your absolute best work. They are going to look at what you put together and assume that that is what they're going to get if they hire you. So if you're putting out something that is not the quality that they're expecting in this role, then this is not going to work out for you. I have seen this happen once before where someone brought in a sample of their work. It was nothing to write home about, and of course, we didn't hire this person. Doing this well does take some time, so if you decide to try this out, I just highly encourage you to make sure you're still putting adequate time into preparing for the interview in the traditional way, practicing your answers, preparing questions for them, predicting what questions might come up, and getting your head in the right space to nail the interview. That is all for today. I have been Greg Langstaff. If you enjoyed this video, please like the video and subscribe to my channel for more job search tips. And remember, you deserve a job you love.